All right, I think we're online right now. Hello, Sylvia. You seem to be the first person here. Welcome to this webinar. All right, hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm happy that you've all been able to join me here today instead of watching the football. Okay, can we go ahead and start? Can you guys hear me? Let me see what it says here. Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, so as you know, the topic here is about vocabulary, its importance in language learning. Now, you're all teachers, and I'm sure you all know very well what the importance of vocabulary is. But I have a feeling that sometimes as teachers, we get too bogged down in trying to teach the grammar, which is important, of course. But the point that I'm trying to make here today is vocabulary might be more important than grammar when it comes to using the language for communication purposes. Now, if any of you have any questions or if you don't agree with me, then feel free to put down in the chat window and I'm going to try and read that and respond to what you say, okay? All right, so the first thing, again, why is vocabulary so important? Yeah, I cannot stress enough. It is the key to communication. I don't know if you have had this experience. I like to start with one of my experiences when I first started teaching English. And I was new, and I had all these ideas right after my CELTA. In fact, there was no CELTA at that time. It was such a long time ago. And I came to a class. I was, the teacher who always came in 10 minutes before. And there are always these students who come early and they sit, and I thought I should have a conversation with them. And I asked this girl, so what did you do at the weekend? And her answer was, I read. And I thought, okay, the grammar is perfect. Simple past, at the weekend, right pronunciation, I read. But then I thought, okay, what information did that give me? Nothing. I would much rather have someone tell me, I read book by Mario Puzo or something without the grammar, but I would have something to go on about. Hello, Martha from Łódź and Lublin. Hello, everyone. Okay, so as you probably know, David Wilkins, a famous British linguist, and I think he put it best, and he's quoted everywhere, which is, without grammar, yes, you're right, very little can be conveyed, but without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. Imagine yourself in a shop in Greece, and you don't speak a lot of Greek. It might be a good idea to be able to know what bread is rather than what I want is, or I wanted yesterday is. So that's the whole idea. It's the key to communication. If you don't have the word, then you're not going to get it. The other person's not going to get it. There's going to be no communication. That's the first point. Next, vocabulary is not just for communication. If you have strong vocabulary, now people who actually, even teachers who actually watch movies in other languages without subtitles, you would see that if you have a better vocabulary bank, you will be able to do other things. It allows you to develop other skills like listening, for example. Vocabulary is not an end in itself. As Paul Nation, I don't know if you've heard of him, he's another leading linguist. He said vocabulary is not an end in itself. A rich vocabulary, or any vocabulary, will make it easier for you with listening. Now, you might have seen it with your students, that if there's a student who's weak, his listening is also weak because he listens to the words, but those words mean nothing to him because he just doesn't know the vocabulary. Even his grammar is not that good, but if he knows the words, he can put two and two together. He can try to get the meaning. This is what I do, for example, when I watch football on a German channel. I know nothing about German. I can only order a beer, nothing more. But I can connect because I know those footballing terms that I can connect that this is what the commentator is trying to say. But that's because I have the vocabulary. I know nothing about the grammar. In fact, I know very little about German. But the same applies to any language, also English. So, and it's the same thing with reading. If you have students who are IT specialists, for example, you will be surprised how good their vocabulary is in their field of expertise. And they do a lot of reading, and they're quite good at it because they know the words. They may not know the grammar very well, but they still know the words. So it's easier to have other skills and develop them if your vocabulary is stronger. And of course, the more words you know, the more you will learn. It's an indirect manner. If you know more words, you will want to know even more words. When you read something, you're going to look at those words that you didn't know, and you will try to say, okay, let me go and learn them. So it's like a snowball. Once you know the word, you can use it, you're going to go and learn more. And when I say word, of course, I don't mean just single words, but expressions, phrases, the whole thing. Okay, do I have a question here? Let me just check. No questions as yet. Okay. Now, one of the ways, and we'll talk about it later, is that we train teachers, we teach students to learn vocabulary from context. We have exercises in books that, okay, so this is the context, work it out yourself. The theory is if the student has to struggle with the language, the student will be able to get the vocabulary and then remember it. Yeah, that's great. But what if you don't know any of the other words in the context? You see where I'm going with this? You need to have some vocabulary to be able to get the context. And the bigger your vocabulary bank is, the easier it becomes for you to learn from context. The easier it becomes for you to be more autonomous. And we're going to talk about autonomy later today, how we can make teaching in general and vocabulary more autonomous. So the question is, what to teach? When you want to teach vocabulary, what to teach? So the first thing is obvious, what it means. It is vital to get the meaning across of what a piece of vocabulary means. Now, what you see here, what it means, is actually not everything. It also means what it does not mean. Let me give you an example. Here, this is something, let's say, A1, A2 student doesn't know what this is. You're teaching the word pen. What would you say? How would you explain the meaning of something called pen? Of course, the easiest way is to put the pen in front of them. What if you're in a situation when you're not facing the student, it's online or in some other way, and you don't have a pen? You would probably define it. It's something you write with. Great, this is what it means. But how do you know that your student is not confusing a pen with a pencil? Because the same definition would also be perfect for a pencil. So you need to show a pen and tell them that this is a pen, but you also need to show a pencil and tell them this is not a pen, so that they know exactly what it means. So what it means, hidden in the meaning, is also what it does not mean. So that's the first thing that you would like to teach. Next, the form. Too often, we ignore the form of what I mean by form is too often when we put it down on the board or we introduce, we do not write what part of speech it is. I know that they're not going to learn meta language, and it's not really a problem at this time because no one is going to ask them on the street, okay, you know this word, what part of speech is it? No, you're right there. But if you teach the form, two things will happen. One, when you refer at a higher stage, later, to forms like what's the adjective form of innocence? They will not fall from the sky. What is adjective? They will have grown with this, that every time they get a new piece of vocabulary, they get the form. They know what it is. And parts of speech exist in every language. So it's fairly easy to relate to to L1, your own language, whatever that may be. So the form is important here. The next thing, and this is where I think the pronunciation is ignored the most. This is what language is all about at the end of the day. When you hear the pronunciation and you say, wow, this guy really speaks good English. And after 5 minutes, his grammar is not that good, but well, he speaks fluently. He speaks just like a native. So pronunciation is important, A, to polish the language, but B, you all know this, ship and sheep and shit and sheet. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but my students all the time would love to lie on a bitch. This is mostly because pronunciation was not taught to them at an earlier stage. The moment you introduce the word, and if you know, and you know that you need to put where the stress is, which part is silent, for example, so that you don't have words later like knowledge or know or things like that. So it is very important that when they're introduced to that vocabulary, the pronunciation is right there. Practice, drill, get it right. Of course, spelling. English is a problematic language when it comes to spelling. I personally think French is worse because my experience of learning French showed me just how poor a learner I was. I don't blame it on my teacher like most of my students do. Spelling is important because in English, English is not a phonetic language, like for example, Polish. You can have G-O, go, so when you hear go and you know it's G-O, you can't automatically make a rule in your mind that low is L-O. I know low and behold can be L-O, but I'm talking about low as opposite of high. It has a W, which is silent. So you cannot go by this. And you can see this writing at lower levels. It is a total, let's say, Polish representation in Poland or German representation in Germany, because these are all phonetic languages. You write what you hear, and you hear what you write. But in English, it's extremely important that you show them what the right spelling is. And at some levels, it is important that you actually compare it with common mistakes, or what can happen if you drop an L or you add an E, that it simply makes another word. Now, this is a problem that is very specific to English. If you make a mistake in an English pronunciation, in an English spelling, there is a very, very high chance, I'm sure you know this as well as anyone else, that you will form a different word, which could be wrong, could be funny, could be embarrassing somehow. So it is important as well. And then we come where on this we put some flesh of grammar. I'm not saying full grammatical structures, but if it follows any grammatical patterns. What kind of patterns are we talking about? It could be, for example, the word man. You teach it at A1 level, but sometimes we forget to teach that man is not like teacher. Why not? Teacher singular, teachers plural. Player singular, players plural. But man, men. Foot, feet. So it's not the normal thing because people think, okay, just add an S and you have the plural version. But it might have a different pattern. So if there is any specific grammatical pattern, it needs to be shown the moment you introduce that piece of vocabulary. So if you're doing man, don't wait for a context for a plural form to come up in the workbook, for example. Immediately. If it is a regular noun where you just add an S, then you just add an S, or you don't necessarily have to do it, because that's a predictable pattern. However, there are some where you put ES. In that case, you have to show it that it's not just S, it's ES. Now, once you do this right at the beginning, the student gets the complete knowledge of this, and the result of that is when you do your free practice and speaking practice and writing practice based on this vocabulary, you can avoid these problems. You don't have to stop every lesson. You still have to, because they won't get it immediately, but you don't have to spend 15 minutes doing the same thing again, because you've given them. It's not new knowledge for them, right? So, connotations. This is very, very important. What connotations does a word have? Let me give you an example. You're teaching the word bachelor. Now, I have noticed that a lot of people who are learning English as a foreign language, the moment you give the word bachelor, they say, oh, it's some kind of a qualification. Where does that come from? Because their connotation is to the bachelor's degree. So they think, oh, okay, bachelor. But we all know that that's not what a bachelor really is. So you give a definition. Okay, what definition would you give? You would say it's a man. It's a man who's not married, also worried. Okay, a man who's not married. But wait a minute, a widower is also a man who's not married. So remember the pen-pencil example? So this is where you have to clearly show that a widower is not necessarily a bachelor. Well, we can use it figuratively. We can use a bachelor figuratively if your wife happens to be visiting her mom and you're alone, but maybe not at this level. Okay, so a bachelor is a man. That's an important part. It's always a man, right? So obviously the question comes, what if it's a woman? Is it still a bachelor? And you say no. Is that enough to say no, a woman is not a bachelor? You have to give the female equivalent for that word bachelor, right? Otherwise, your students will go home feeling that we didn't get the complete knowledge. This is the worst thing you can do to a student. The student has needs, and if the student feels that the teacher is not fulfilling those needs, you're going to lose the students. And if you lose the students, there will be no teaching going on whatsoever. They might write tests, but there won't be any teaching or learning. So, okay, so you need to give the female version of bachelor, and you say spinster, because that's what the dictionary says. A spinster is a woman who is not married. Great. But now look at the connotation. In English, I'm not sure about other languages, but I think it might be the same in Polish. Correct me if I'm wrong. Feel free to write there in the comment section. Correct me if I'm wrong. In English, bachelor is a neutral or even positive word. But a spinster is not so positive. It has negative connotation. It has a negative image. A spinster is the one who got left on the shelf, kind of. So you need to tell them that you can refer to someone as a bachelor and it won't be offensive, but spinster, someone might feel bad about it. So connotations, very important. All right. Okay, something's wrong here. Yeah. The situations when the word is or is not used. So you might have situations where, okay, there you go, Marcin. So it's the same. Spinster in Polish also has negative connotation. So I rest my case. So you understand perfectly well what I'm trying to say here. You have to give this connotation, otherwise they're going to use it in the wrong situations. Which brings us to this point. The situations when the word is or is not used. Um, is it? Now, for example, even at beginners levels, A1, A2, what is the first thing in A1 that you teach a student? It's probably how to react when you meet someone, you know? Hello, hi, good morning, good evening, and so on and so forth. So what's the difference between hello, hi, good evening, if it's all the same? Oh, thank you, Marcin, for that clarification. See, I'm learning Polish while I go out there. Thank you very much. So back to this. So what's the difference between hello, hi? It's a very easy way to do it. I normally tell my students, okay, so when you meet your friend from school or your friend at your football club or whatever, what is the first thing you say? And they give me a word in Polish, which is usually cześć. Oh, great. So I learned something. You say cześć, okay. And then you say, okay, but would you say the same thing when you meet your professor at school? Or the doctor who's going to perform some operation on you? And they would say, no, 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 no. Then we say something else. Why? It's the same. Well, it's not the same because the register is different. Yeah? So we come into formal, informal. But maybe at lower levels, they don't have the vocabulary to understand that. But you could give them with situations, that you use it in this situation. Exactly, it's the more official version. Thank you, Janetta. Which means we're talking about register here, right? That hello is more formal, it's more official than hi. And it's the same thing, pleased to meet you, and how do you do? Or how you doing? Different registers, same meaning. But same meaning does not mean you can use it in all situations. So as I am trying to say here, the situations when the word is used and when it's not used. Where would you use it? So it is important to teach that when they're learning so that they don't make a fool of themselves. You know, when they're using it, they don't come across an embarrassing situation. They learn something and they go say, okay, I learned this word, let me try it out. But they're trying it out in the wrong situation. It needs to be corrected right there. Okay. Then we need to look at how a word is related to other words. What that really means is synonyms, antonyms, lexical sets. So that's why we teach vocabulary in lexical sets. So if you are teaching the word socks, think, why would you even teach that word? You're teaching that word because you're probably doing a lexical set of clothes. And socks will go with other parts of clothing, like shirt, skirt, shoes, the rest of it, you know. Now, you can't teach the word socks just out of the blue. And you say, oh, okay, today my program says you have to learn the word socks, so here, my dirty, sticky pair of socks, this is what socks are, this is the pronunciation, and there you go. That doesn't make sense, because the person's mind, human mind, is very curious, inquisitive. You think, okay, those are rather long socks. Is it the same word for socks that you hang from a Christmas tree? It has nothing to do with clothing, but it looks similar. So you will very often be dragged into this by students. And the worst is when the student doesn't ask you, he asks his neighbor. And this is, unfortunately, you want to make sure that the student goes home with the right meaning of the word. And you're never sure, especially if you don't follow the L1, the language of the student, what meaning he's gone home with, because he's going to ask his neighbor, and he said, yeah, he told me it's okay, no problems. But you don't know if he got the right meaning and if he has a problem until much later. But you want to stop that right at the beginning. So you give, okay, so you think, okay, so you understand the word. How about the opposite? Yeah, what would be the opposite of this? So someone says, well, I know expensive. Oh, great. Give me some examples. What can be expensive related to a product? Or what's the opposite? Is that expensive? So related to synonyms, antonyms, lexical sets, and then as a teacher, you know, A, that he's got the whole context, and B, he has understood what you're trying to say, the vocabulary part. So this is something to teach as well. You cannot teach vocabulary in isolation. You cannot just, for that, you have dictionaries. You can just throw a dictionary at them and tell them, okay, so I want you to learn the first 10 words of A, the first 10 words of B and C, and by the end of the year, you'll know every word in the dictionary. It doesn't work that way. So unless they're able to relate it to other lexical parts of the same set, they will not be able to use it. And if they're not able to use the word, then teaching vocabulary is quite used. Oh, perfect example from Beata. She talks about fat socks instead of thick socks. So, absolutely. Thank you again, Beata, for that. Okay, so let's come to what Beata just mentioned. Collocation. Yeah. You can use fat with other things, but not with socks. Then it's thick. You can have this argument about a dictionary, whether a dictionary is thick or fat, but definitely in socks, no. So, for example, even at higher level, I have seen B2, C1 people who talk about things in big detail. You don't say big detail, you can say in great detail and in a lot of other words, but big simply does not collocate with detail. So collocations are very important. So for example, if you want students and you tell them to not shout all at the same time and you tell them, okay, everyone, if you have an answer, do this. And they do that. And you ask them, okay, so what did you just do? Do they say, I lifted my hands? Or do they say, I raised my hands? Now, it's a collocation thing. Physically, you are lifting your hand. But you don't lift your hand, you raise your hand. It's one of those quirks of language. So collocations are very, very important. So that you know that they will use it in the right place with the right collocation. Okay, so next we come to, of course, another point is what kind of suffixes and prefixes and all that go, but maybe at a higher level, not at A1, A2 level. That might confuse them. So we now know we've made a list. It's not a comprehensive list. Let me just read. Yeah, I completely agree. A lot of them are Polish translations. And here's my question. A very good point by Janata here. If you can all read what everyone's writing, she's written that a lot of them are unfortunately Polish translations. But my question to you, Janata, is why are they Polish translations? Because they're translating words. They're not. The idea of translation has always been that you don't translate words, you translate ideas. And yeah, exactly. Word, they do it. They just replace one word in one language with. But the reason for that is when this piece of vocabulary was introduced to them, they were not introduced to the whole list that we have been putting here for all this time. They were not taught the collocation. They were not taught how it's related, and that will result in translating word for word. That's what they will do, because they don't have this knowledge. Now, it's the teacher's duty to give them that knowledge. They're not going to get it from the sky. So that's the role of the teacher. They need to do this. And later you will see, yes, you're right, that most people think in their native language. Actually, if I can digress a little bit, there's been research to show that we don't actually think in any language. It might surprise you. Well, a lot of you might know this. We actually apparently, well, I'm not a scientist, it was not my research, but I read this, that all people think in images. So the first thought that comes to your mind is always an image. And then your brain translates that image into a language, usually the native language. But this is where your level of foreign language comes. When your level is high enough, then this image does not necessarily have to be first translated into a native language. It could be done directly to L2, L3, or whatever you're doing. If you look at bilingual people, they don't have this problem. Now, let me just read. Yeah, Beata, another great point right there. So I can tell you from my personal experience, I have two kids and they're both bilingual. And it was amazing when they were learning to speak how they mixed up the two languages, and they would not even think. They would simply have a complete English sentence with 2 Polish words, or a complete Polish sentence with 3 English words, and they wouldn't even realize that they had mixed up languages. It's because their brain is translating into whatever came first to their mind from that image. Okay, so get back to what we were doing. So since we know all this, what to teach, this is important for the teacher. The teacher should know what he needs to teach. Otherwise, he's never going to teach. It's not just going into the classroom and do whatever comes to your mind. You need to plan this. So obviously, it leads us to the question, how to present vocabulary. Now, the easiest way, of course, is some kind of illustration. Now, I have a page from the book that we're going to talk about a little later. It's called Vocabulary at Work. And this is 50, and it has lots of examples. Not only this, I can show you, it has many of these. Here is another page, as you can see. Ideally, if it is a noun, it is best to either show a picture or even better to get some realia into class. Yeah, but there is a limit to the realia you can get into class. Yeah, you can get a banana and an apple or something, but you're not going to get a wardrobe in the class, or it's simply not, or if you're doing transport, good luck to the teacher who wants to bring in a real plane or a train or something, toy train maybe. So if we can't get in realia into the classroom to show them, and this is only nouns, yeah, then we can have an illustration. And illustrations don't have to be great photographs. If you can draw a picture on the board, you can draw a picture. There is no bad artist in an English or any language teacher. In fact, my experience shows if you're not a good artist, they will learn the vocabulary because they will need to struggle a little more. They will laugh at you. They will be without any stress because you made a fool of yourself trying to draw a chair. Some might even come to the board and draw it for you. That experience is going to stay with them. They will know what a chair is for the rest of their lives. And they will use the word because we always remember things that are not everyday happenings, things that are extraordinary. So if you're planning to present nouns, this is a great way to do it. And I think most books do it now, illustration or realia or something to show. Now, what if it is a verb? Yeah, true. The internet is extremely useful in this, and we will come to the internet. Unfortunately, in this I can't show you, but I will give you, I'm sure you guys are pretty well aware of what's out there on the net, but for those of you who are not, I will put anyway some of my favorite sites where you can go and get it. You guys are all on the computer. Yeah, Janetta, you're right. We're coming to that. taking away my whole talk here. But yeah, you're right. I'll come to that flashcards in a moment. So here, illustrations are good for nouns. Yeah. What if it's a verb? Ideas? Okay, feel free to write your ideas down there. So you can show it. Exactly. So this is, again, miming has been proven psychologically to be very, very effective. It's like a game. You do it, and then you get the students to do it. It's all great fun, but it gives you the opportunity to check they've understood the word, the vocabulary part. It gives you the chance to drill pronunciation when others are saying what this person is doing. And you can go further by getting context in this. Because if, for example, you want to show that you're brushing your teeth, so you go like this, but also go eyes like this, you could say, he's sleepy and he's just woken up, which is not what you were teaching, but it brings context. So always back to that example I gave you right at the beginning about my student who said, I read. It has had amazing, huge philosophical effect on me. I have that become an entertainer. Yeah, exactly. So I've had this feeling that what good is language if you're not able to communicate? I read that gave me no meaning. So if you can put in more meat to just this, it's great. And yes, entertainment is absolutely good for student morale. They feel a part of it. They're also taking part. They don't look at it as teacher-student. They look at it as a learning experience. Okay, so yes, you can do it as mime. You can show realia, but I'm sorry, I have to bring you back to reality. Most of you, in fact, I think all of you, have some kind of syllabus or a program or something that you need to follow. You can't, and so what I'm trying to say is you are limited to the amount of time you can devote to something like teaching only this vocabulary. It would be ideal to devote more time. Think of it in terms of how you learned your first language. There is a joke. You say that, I was so surprised at my birth that I didn't speak for the first 2.5 years. The fact is, a baby only starts speaking, let's say, 2.5 years. If you're bilingual, God help you, even 3 years. But does that mean until the time the baby spoke on his first words, there was no language training there? No, because long before that, the babies learn to respond. You tell the baby to do something and the baby responds. How does the baby respond without learning language? So there was learning going on even before. So we know, but it took 2 years. As a teacher, you don't have 2 years to teach 10 words. You have a program to follow. You have a curriculum. So we have to come to what is the most worldwide, I wouldn't say popular, but commonly used system and probably effective as well. So we can't argue that part, which is lists, word lists. I don't mean a dictionary, but a word list. That is the reason why practically every course book at the end of the book, 3 pages from the end, has a list of irregular verbs. All in a list. What is that? That's encouraging students to yeah, you're right, Lukash, about babies, but they pick up vocab. You're writing babies pick up vocab. Exactly, but that is a part of the learning procedure. So if you have that kind of time to spend with your students, that would be great. Except one thing, babies have an empty mind. They don't have an interference of L1, which your students will. Your students are learning English as a foreign language or second language. So here is a difference. Babies have kind of a free, empty hard disk, and they're just recording it on that. You need to remove certain things from your full hard disk and put something else. So that's slightly different there. So we come to lists. But I don't really mean lists as dictionary lists. That's boring. So typical, you have antonyms, synonyms, and you can put it in all kinds of ways. You can put up a boring list, which people will take home. Yeah, that's the point I was making, Mukesh. Babies have nothing to relate to. You have the interference of your first language. Good. That's what I was trying to say there. Thanks. So you need to put something like, this is a list. Let's not try to hide the fact that this is a list. We can give it whatever name we want. We've tried to make a nice picture here, left and right, and just to make it. I actually get my students to draw pictures in this so that they have this feeling that they're taking part. But at the end of the day, it is still a list, and lists are very, very effective. When I say effective, it is effective for quick learning. It has been proved by a lot of researchers, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of work on this, that a human mind, unless they're given some kind of list, is not able to take more than 5 to 6 pieces of vocabulary in a 90-minute lesson. But you really don't have that kind of time. So you have to speed it up. And you speed it up by doing 2 things. One, making lists, and more importantly, your lists should use vocabulary they already know, existing knowledge. That's very important. Otherwise, they think, oh, we landed on Mars. But here they say, oh, I know this, so I would know this. So I know start, so begin is more or less the same as start. So that's how it goes. And of course, we cannot forget definition. Now, those of you who are into English for academic purposes, or you're preparing your students for university or college or something in another country, English-speaking country in the UK or in the US, you know there is an exam they will have to go through, or they need to get a grade in IELTS academic or something. And it becomes very important at some point of time to be able to define something. There's also a bit of grammar here, because the moment you get into definition, you're also getting into the grammar of relative clauses and something. So you're putting in grammar like through a backdoor. So definitions will always have their place in vocabulary learning. This is what you do when you check a dictionary. A dictionary gives basically the definition. So again, this is a page from this book, and it is trying to elicit from the students the definition. So if the student doesn't know, he's not going to give you the definition. But it's a bit like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Give him 3 choices, 4 choices, and he can make, I wouldn't say a guess, but an educated guess. He's using his existing vocabulary, trying to connect the connotation and the collocation and everything, and he's trying to come to a conclusion that, okay, I have only 4 options. It can be this, it can be this, it could be this, but I think it's this. It may be wrong, but it goes through the thinking process. So when I say definition, how to present, excuse me, it does not mean that you give a list of definition. That's the dictionary. It's good to have a dictionary in the classroom, but you don't hand out a dictionary to everyone. And anyway, in today's internet age, you'll have it on your phone. But the problem with giving a ready-made definition without the student having to work through it is it satisfies their current hunger for that word, because they need this word to do a task. And the moment they do the task, the need is gone, and it's gone from their memory. They will never be able to use it again. This is the whole difference between active and passive vocabulary. Passive vocabulary is vocabulary that you know. If someone asks you a question, you can tell them what it is, but you would never use it yourself. And that is a very big problem. So giving a definition in this way, as in this book, or many other books for that matter, is a way to challenge their minds while actually giving them a definition. Okay, and of course, we had this discussion earlier. They translate from their own language, and you can give them a translation. At the end, if nothing works, it's like you are on the street and you want to go to the post office. You're talking to a guy who doesn't understand anything at all. What is going to happen? Uh, yes, Lukash, I'm not sure what you mean exactly as teaching to action. Are you talking about task-based? That there should be a task that where this person is supposed to use this language? Okay, I'll wait for your answer, come back, and I'll continue. So back to the guy on the street. Well, if someone doesn't understand anything, what he's going to do is, okay, thanks, Lukash. Yeah, that's what I was getting to. So the man on the street, he's going to stop a second man and ask him, "Do you speak English? Because I can't help this guy." And that guy's going to translate. So this is the stick for the blind people. And at the end, you may need to give translation. Now, in this book, we don't give translation as such, but like a dictionary, at the end of the book, we have translation. We have a glossary of all the terms that we think are important. And I don't know if you can see it, it's rather small, and we have it in 6 languages because you don't know what the other guy's language is. So, yes, translation at the end, we do give translation. Yes, Janetta, it's a very good point. Some of them have good intuition. There are 2 explanations to this. Either they're great poker players, you can do nothing about that, or it is not really intuition, it's what we call an educated guess. It's like a betting shop, that you are betting on something because you know about you have certain information that helps you to make it's like also, in a way, if you're playing poker, you know what hand you have and you know what cards have passed. So you're making a calculation what's left. So they may not know it. They might call it intuition, but very often it's not intuition. It's based on some very solid basic work that they've done, thanks to their teacher, most probably, that they can do it. This is what I said right at the beginning, that it helps you to learn more. A time comes when it's no more just intuition. Okay, I think we need to speed up a bit because we're going a bit slow. And of course, we talk about context. We talked about it before. Now, this book specifically has exercises where you have context. It just says, as you can see, situation and what we say. Of course, it's a matching exercise. It's not a definition, because giving definitions is never going to help. So, yeah. So again, they need to struggle a bit. It's a kind of matching exercise, but it's about context. Okay. We've talked a lot about what to teach, how to present, but we need to make sure that they retain what we teach. It's no good teaching them if they can't retain this, and that's an important part. And how do teachers do that? Before that, let's have a look at board work. This is something a lot of us, this is a board, a picture of a board. It's not English language, but I think it's a very good example of what a lot of teachers do. They basically start in the center of the board. If you're drawing a mind map, that's great. But if you're just adding anything anywhere, it's going to confuse the students, because students like to record things. They want to record things. And those of you who use interactive boards, we use interactive boards here, you have the possibility of basically recording the whole lesson on your board and sending it to the student as a PDF. So I personally do that a lot, because I don't want them to be busy doing something else when they should be focusing on the board. Of course, there are some people who, if they don't write it down, they will never get it. But the vast majority, if I want them to focus on something, I don't want them to get the spelling wrong or do something else. So I tell them, don't worry, I'll record all the board work and send it to you. But if your board work looks like this, I seriously doubt if they're going to learn anything. So here is a suggestion. It's a blank suggestion. I think everyone is pretty well aware of it. You need to have a workspace. This is the erasable part of the board. This is where you put something, because if you don't have an interactive board, then you're limited to one surface. Okay, I know there are some surfaces which you can flip around and you have two surfaces, but that's it. So you need to have a space where you can erase and put new things. But you also need to have, for example, here you see the vocabulary part. You need to have a section that will stay. You cannot erase new vocabulary immediately. It should stay for the whole lesson. In fact, you can use it at the end of the lesson to somehow recycle this vocabulary. So yeah, this is the standard. Yes, of course, this is the standard layout everyone is taught. There is something even more complicated and might even work. Yeah, you're right. Mess on the board is, it confuses everyone, including the teacher. If the teacher wants to find a word or go back to that word, this is why you have this thing. It doesn't have to be on the right. It's just an example. You could put it on the top and the bottom. The point is you should have a place where it should be. And it should stay there right until the end. The thing for errors, this is something I find very useful. This is where you put the typical errors that people make. For example, it could be anything. It could be a typical grammatical error. It could be a typical pronunciation error. It could be just about anything. And this is where I would suggest using red. But important point here is when you put errors, make sure you cross it out. Because a lot of students will think, oh, okay, it's some part of grammar or some part of language. If you don't cross it out, you write it and then cross it out. If you don't cross it out, they might think is as correct. And that could be very confusing later. So you need to be careful about that. So board work. After board work, this is an important part of teaching that we all seem to forget from time to time. So it was just a reminder. I'm sure you guys know perfectly well how to do this. So we just touched on it. So how to retain? There is no other way. Practice, 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 practice as many times. There is no other way. A teacher can't really drill it into anyone's head. This is the truth. I have been doing it for over 25 years. I can tell you, there is no substitute for practice. So what does that mean? What's the teacher's role? The teacher's role is practice is very often boring. It's boring. I mean, I feel bored going to the gym. My doctor tells me I need to go, and that's the reason I go. I go and I go, okay, I don't want to do this. So practice can be boring. The teacher's job is to make sure that practice is varied and it's not boring. That's what the teacher is there for. Yeah, absolutely, Justina. The practice makes perfect. The more tasks you do, the better you will be. But here's the question. The key word in your sentence, Justina, is task. What task? What task is not monotonous? What task is not boring? So there are lots of them, and I have a few ideas for you. You know these are standard tasks like a worksheet where you need to choose a multiple choice or open close or one of those things. Now this book also has quite a few of those. If you're using worksheets and you make your own, there are websites which can help you to do that. And if you're doing something like that, just make sure you choose an interesting. Yeah, I know Kahoot is great. We are coming to that. Right now I'm looking at a more written material because there's another thing that people want to take something home with them. You know, a piece of paper. What did you do today? I did this. So that is that part of this. So yeah, Kahoot is great. Absolutely. So worksheets. There is Kahoot. There are loads of games, loads of games. It is how you, I think a big part of it is how you as teacher, how you carry it on. Because Snap is a memory game. It often leads to fights even. But the thing is, how, for example, I don't know, are you familiar with Taboo? I'm sure you are. You can change the rules as you go on. You can make it more difficult, less difficult. Um, it's up to you. And you can ask students for ideas. How can we change this? They feel a part of it. They feel they're playing a game. So obviously, vocabulary games are absolutely the memory game, all kinds of board games, dice games. I just couldn't put the whole list up. But I'll put my email address at the end. If anyone needs any kind of suggestion, I will be more than happy to do it. Just write me a line, and I have loads of this. Yes, you can do Kahoot. In fact, most of these you can do on your own. I can even give you a website which helps you to do it, and it looks very professional. So, okay. Then we move on to a little more, let's say, less game-like, but more brain work, crosswords, word searches. And here is a very good example. I'm particularly proud of this one. See, all the words are already there. Yeah, Quizlet is absolutely fine. Yeah, Blickers too. Yeah, you guys all have great ideas there. So, okay, coming back to this, do you see it doesn't look like a regular crossword? What I'm trying to say is that as teachers, don't do regular. They have done regular. They know all that. Change it, reverse it. As you can see, this is a reverse crossword. The answers, clues are all there. You can tell them to write clues, or in this exercise, the clues are given, they have to match the clues to the words. It's an easier one, but we also have where they have to write the clues. And then one side writes the clues for down, one side writes the clues for across, and then they give it to them. Yeah. And then we talked about flashcards. Now, a bit of advertisement. Now, this book actually comes with flashcards, and it comes with a box that you have to create, like IKEA, yourself. And it comes with flashcards in 6 languages, and it also comes for pronunciation purposes. It comes with a CD, and it also comes with an Android application that you get with the book. So it is quite up to date in that. Okay, we were talking about autonomy. Quizlet. Someone mentioned Quizlet. It's absolutely great. People who use Quizlet, I should give you a little word of warning. Make sure your students know and you know to choose language, because Quizlet, as you know, it is speech-to-voice transcription. It's a software. So, for example, I'll give you an example. If you did not change the language and you wrote the word same, and your language chosen was Polish, it will pronounce it as same, not same. So we need to be careful with Quizlet, the choice of language. And if you're using the Quizlet dictionary, people who don't know Quizlet, please write me an email. I have a video on how to use Quizlet that you guys can use it. If you're choosing the library, be careful, because it's like Wikipedia. There are loads of definitions that are simply wrong. You have to make that decision to choose the right one. I don't know how many of you are quite familiar with lyrics training. It's absolutely brilliant. It's lyricstraining.com. If you don't know it, go and try it. It's not my website. I'm not, but it's great for language learning. There are songs, you'll see YouTube videos, and you have blank spaces to fill out. If you get the spelling wrong, it will not fill it out, but it stops the song and lets you to fill it out, which is the great thing. You don't have to pause. It automatically pauses. And the moment you put that in, it continues. Now, Learning Chocolate and Language Guide, this is these two, Learning Chocolate and you can go right now and check. These are lists. These are vocabulary lists, but presented in a great way and very, very helpful to make your own teaching materials. There are loads of others. I'm not going to fill this up with all of them. Again, if anyone needs any suggestion about anything, for example, even speaking activities, you can write to me and I'll tell you what website to go to and where you can help. Okay? Point before I finish. You get a certificate of participation for just being here and bearing with me for an hour. Thank you very much. To be able to do that, please send an email to us and please do write your certificate is for which webinar, because we have so many of them that please do write which webinar you attended, okay? If you want it, of course. And if anyone is interested in the book, there is some kind of promotion right now with 25%, and there is an address right at the bottom, books@prolog.edu.pl. You need to write to them, and I think the promotion is only for about another week. Feel free to write, and well, thank you for bearing with. That's my email address right there, so you can write to me, and thank you very much for being with me. And if there is any question that any of you might have about anything, please feel free and write me a line. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for all the great ideas that you put up here. So, hope to see you guys soon with another one. Welcome, Pavel. Welcome, all of you. Goodbye, everyone. Sleep tight. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Mukerji.